So I am very, very excited to introduce Wade Younger to you all. Wade, how you doing, buddy?
Robin, I'm doing great. Nice to see you again. How's it going?
Doing great. Glad you are here. So let's open up with a really broad, but I think foundational question and a really simple one. I think a lot of people don't quite know exactly what AI is. So we're going to focus heavily on AI today. So talk to us about, first of all, what is AI, and especially generative AI? And why specifically should Humana's leaders know what it is and be able to use it?
Absolutely. So, first of all, thanks for having me. And when it comes to AI, it's a science like mathematics. It's a science, and it's basically the opportunity for machines to mimic human intelligence and also task. So we have an opportunity just on the basics to have a problem. AI helps us to solve it by looking at data, and that data is put through what's called modeling, and that's basically how we request information. And that data, and analogous to us, is basically our past knowledge and history on what we've experienced before. So knowledge to us is data to AI. Asking those questions, and then it mimics how we would go about solving that problem or performing a task. Going down a subset of AI is generative AI, and that was an opportunity for the tool to generate something that didn't exist before: text, music, pictures. A lot of us have been experimenting with generative AI with ChatGPT or BART or Gemini, where we are asking questions and it's spitting out dissertations. And I've seen this post recently where these kids were taking these tests and they were done in 10 minutes using ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I'm for the technology, but I cringe about how will they go about life after this.
So I recently, I was just messing around with it. Messed around with ChatGPT a few times, Google's Genesis a few times, and I was speaking to a group about the team performance model that we visited a few months back. And I wanted to give them my biography, but I read back over it. I was going to introduce myself using it, and I thought, this is really stale. Like, so it's all accurate, but it's sort of boring. And I asked ChatGPT, I fed it in my biography, and I said, can you make this more interesting? And it gave me back, it was definitely more interesting. So it was giving me things like, Robin is the maestro of leadership development, and all this very flowery language that I would never actually use myself. So it was actually really fun because I was able to introduce myself, acknowledging that I had used AI to get this, but it gave me back all this language that I had never even thought of using before. So that was one simple application that I've tried.
Absolutely.
Yeah, love it. Talk to us more about, like, what challenges do you see for leaders in embracing AI, because it is such a new technology, it's unknown, we haven't really figured out the basics of it. Talk to us about that.
Gotcha. So when it comes to technology, and my work sits in the middle of execution, technology, and what the business needs. So in working with leaders throughout these years, one of the things I've found is businesses and business leaders, even within an organization, their focus is getting a particular job done, increasing productivity and revenue, decreasing costs and waste, and then you have to have a global view of all of that. When it comes to AI, it's another technology. Think about it for a second. If we think about the past, our latest technologies for our generations, which was the personal computer, the internet, then it was the smartphone, streaming, and then e-commerce, Amazon. And then we went on to the metaverse, VR headsets and augmented reality there, and then blockchain for security. And now here it is, AI. So if we think about it, it's always been a trajectory of movement, but every time you always need somebody to understand the business. So the challenge would be, number one, if we're using this tool, it has to require data. And it's always that garbage in, garbage out. So it has to be good data as far as what you're using to make those decisions. The other thing is modeling, and I'll say modeling a lot, and basically how we ask AI to perform a task. And it's not just about that. It's about what are you going to do with that information once you're going to get it, once you get it. And here's the differentiator, because in all the hype and hope and fear, there's a fundamental unique characteristic of this time frame that we're not talking about enough, even today. And that is, what exactly is changing? And this is for leadership. Think about it, for example. What is going to change? Because we went from writing with a pencil to a typewriter to personal computers. Every time we got faster and more efficient. But what did not change is you still needed an original thought. You needed editing, revision, you needed draft. Those things didn't change. So today, as we talk about AI, stay smart, and it's all about having the ability to solve problems. Now, back to AI and what the challenge would be. Number one, again, is data. And I'm gonna go back to data. Where is the data coming from? What is it all about? It's the internet, first of all. The internet has been in existence for 41 and a half years. And everything that has been printed since the Gutenberg printing press in the 1400 is on the internet. It's been digitized I would say about 95% of the internet is digitized. And what I mean by digitized is you're able to search on it. Because AI, and I'm going to go down a little bit, for AI to be effective, you have three types of data. You have structured data, and structured data is labeled such as spreadsheets, Word documents, databases, things that you can identify. Unstructured data could be something on a napkin that was scanned and put on the internet, pictures, the Mona Lisa, a stop sign, topography, and then you have generated information, and that's basically synthesized data that, let's say, for example, you're working on some type of innovation, and it really doesn't exist as far as there's no example for what I want. And so what AI can help you do is create some samples that are not true, but based on what it knows, it can create that data. So in order for all of that to take place, you have to trust it. So I'm getting into that because that's the crux of AI, and that's the challenge for leaders, is to understand we have clean data. I'm going to pause for a second and go from there.
Yeah. So I do want to hear about clean data, but I want to go back just a little bit, because I think what you're alluding to is a question that might be on the minds of a lot of leaders, and that is AI going to make us obsolete? I think you've answered that question to some degree by talking about you always need a mind behind what we actually use this technology for. But would you add anything to that, just to make sure that, I mean, you and I talked about this in advance, this idea that, are we going to start losing leaders because of this? Are we going to start cutting jobs? What's the reality there for leaders?
I will be parenthetically clear. AI will not replace leadership. It can't. The three things that leaders have is our awareness, empathy, and wisdom, and context around that. AI just gives you the data, and it gives you the 1 + 1, 2 + 2, but it doesn't tell you why are we thinking that? So with that being said, in a leadership and business perspective, we always need leadership. We always need the human intervention. Good example of that, Amazon. Amazon decided to create a mechanism to increase productivity without human intervention because they're so smart. And so they created this tool to say, based on performance in our warehouses, our workers should be performing at X level. And if not, some ramifications will take place. They put this mechanism in place where there's almost like a monitor dashboard that the workers would look at. It's like, we should be at this point at this time of day. Individuals were actually getting hurt physically trying to keep up with the AI model was, projecting. The problem was it was no intervention involved in creating that model. As a result, workers got frustrated, they petitioned, and they were picketing around warehouses with the statement, "We are not robots." So with that being said, we always need human intervention, and specifically, we definitely need leadership.
Yeah, it's a great example too of the limitations of AI, or how we can help continue to make it better, right? Because it doesn't think about if humans follow this path, they're going to get injured or frustrated, or it's going to make their work harder, all those kinds of things.
Right.
All right, let's come back then. You just used a phrase called clean data. Talk to us about what you mean by that and why is that important?
Within the AI realm, AI uses the term corpus. Corpus means a body of information. And what you want to do is the body of information that you use has the data or the information that you want to use. For example, within Humana, we have over 16 million customers. So in all of their information, which is HIPAA information, very confidential and private, as we look at analysis, we want to make sure that it's not tainted. It's that data. But let's say if we want to look at how many of our customers are experiencing PTSD or cancer, well, what kind of cancer? Skin cancer, colon cancer, or mental issues, what happens? How do you get into that? And then you go into, it sounds like an analysis of what about demographics and what about their previous histories? We could do that with SQL, of course, but AI does it faster and more meaningful. We get a dissertation in regards to what that's about. Now, here's the clean part. When individuals and companies are using data on the internet that's been existed for 41 years, it's also data from, again, books, dissertations, articles, but it's also Reddit and also Wikipedia. Case in point, within Wikipedia, 87% of contributors for Wikipedia are white males. For Reddit, wow, 67% are white males. So are you really getting a cross examination of everybody? What about the individuals that, or the people that are not as represented? The single mom.
There's necessarily going to be bias in those, whatever is coming up on Wikipedia.
Exactly. So the thing is, it's a matter of paying attention to, we have to use it, yes, but we have to pay attention to how we are segregating it and using it for us. But if not, if we just trust it, it's like, what are you doing? A good point in regards to trusting data. Uber decided to, obviously Uber Eats was Uber first and then Uber Eats. They said, we'll just use generative AI to create our pictures. So, and they started to say, okay, we want to have some type of salad, and their pictures came out this gross, unrealistic image of supposed to be food because they weren't looking at the data. So my point is, it's usable, it's a trust and verify, which means, again, we need to be humanly involved.
Okay, so I think what you're alluding to is what we've been hearing about around AI hallucinating and giving us back results that aren't accurate or aren't true, or is that what you're getting at with that like the Uber Eats example?
Absolutely, it is a cousin of hallucination. And one of the things that I recommend if you're using any of the generative tools like ChatGPT, always ask it, is this the truth? Did this really happen? Is there any filler here? And it'll tell you, because it doesn't have a conscience. It'll tell you, no, I completely made this up. This didn't happen. And I just had that happen to me very recently. I was working on a project here at Humana, and it gave me this use case of it was something that had to do with cancer. I'm like, and I asked the question, is this real? And it said no. So yeah, you have to ask the question.
So can you duplicate that chip and then something I can implant in my daughter's mind?
Exactly.
When I ask her, is this true? Oh, yes, Dad. This is definitely true.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love it. I am super curious because as I've gotten to know you a little bit, Wade, like you have this special passion for the technology of AI and how it works and what it can do for us. I am really curious. Can you share like a success story of where AI has made a great impact for you, or something, you know, where you just like first got into this and your head exploded around like why this is so great? Tell us your experience.
Yeah, so this is a real case study. So I was working with BSI Solutions. I was COO, but I was always a hands-on worker when it came to technology. And we got this big $11 million contract with the VA. With the VA, they service 19 million veterans across the country. Actually, one of the largest healthcare providers, you know, here in the country. But one of the things that they had was they had data that was ubiquitous all over the place, a lot of data points, but they never herded it together. And so they had 1,400 different researchers that wanted the ability to look at trends and go from what's benign versus what's legit. And in order to do that, we had to look at data points from all sorts. And then since again it's HIPAA data, it had to be locked down by way of blockchain. And then from there, this is where generative AI came in, because now we all have prompts. But when it comes to generative AI, it's been around. It's about asking the question to get the right answer. And this is where I had that aha moment. It's like, my gosh, if we're asking the program to do it from a prompt, what if we were able to do this as well? And then here's OpenAI in version 3 in 2022 rather. But anyway, so this was my aha moment with the federal government. And so from there, it started to go with finding trends, because that's what all it does. Again, it's about learning from information. You understand it, you predict from it, you process it, and then you problem solve from it. That's all it does. It doesn't sit there thinking, well, what if? No, it gives us what we ask for. So it was at that point that I recognized, man, this is really heavy. And so the information that it was giving us, which was printout if we wanted, 3D if we wanted, stuff that can go on the VR headset if it wanted, it was amazing. And that's when I had that, my goodness, I'm going to stay on this train until it dies. So that's where we are.
Like it just opened up all these possibilities that we never even considered before, right?
Yep. On a personal note, just you think metaverse, you think you're able to exchange information, ideas via headset. We'll use that for an example. I end up buying some web domains, because I buy and sell web domains on side, interest there. I end up buying vrdates.com so people can interact on the internet on their own, and then VR Campus, where it would build out where people can visit college campuses via VR. And I did that based on that particular project when it came to AI. So I just wanted to share that was my awareness moment to take it to another level.
Love it. I love it. Oh man, I could spend all day. We're not going to wrap up the interview here, but I do want to make sure that we get to some very practical things that leaders can do. And I'm going to share the slide that you put together around practical actions. We have a lot of leaders from a lot of different areas of Humana. And so, we don't have, one set of specific leaders working on some very specific things. So we want to make sure that we're speaking broadly enough to this set of leaders. But I'm going to share my screen here, go back to this slide that or the PowerPoint that we were using. And if you would just walk us through these practical actions and help leaders understand, if you take these actions, tell us a little bit about what these actions are, and if folks take them, what can they expect in terms of making things quicker, making things easier, removing headaches, better outcomes, all those sorts of things.
Yeah, the first thing I would recommend is do not be intimidated when it comes to AI, generative AI, and what it's offering today. It's very understandable. In fact, Google has a set of instructions that are free, classes that are free, that I highly recommend, and I can send you the link to that. I've taken them to see if I can learn anything new, which I have. It's always stuff to learn. So I would recommend that. Learn the basics first. You do not have to be a data scientist to be really adroit as far as moving the organization forward, but understand the basics. And the basics are this: there's always the data, the model, the output, and then the results. And it's what you do with the results that makes the difference. That's what you need there. Again, the difference between generative and regular AI. AI is the overall science of it. Generative gives us outputs that didn't exist before because it can figure out trends. As far as developing a clear strategy, it's all about vision, integrity, and what you're trying to do for the customer. Understand what problem do you want to solve first. And I spend so much time on problem solving because when it comes to AI, all it does is give you what you ask for. But if you become a good problem solver, you'll get more information out and definitely better results. So become better at problem solving. And one of the things I really advocate is MICE, mutual exclusive, collectively exhaustive. Basically is a technique where you could take a problem, decompose it, And then at that point, once you understand exactly where you want to go, then you can use your tool to get there faster, more efficiently. I don't look at AI as a shortcut. I look at AI as an opportunity to be more productive.
So
Go ahead.
let me ask a quick question about that one, because I used AI a while back. I design a lot of workshops and I facilitate workshops for leaders throughout the organization and have done over the years. And one of the revelations has been to me is that I don't know everything that's out there. If I'm designing a workshop from scratch, a half-day workshop, for example, I'll think about all the resources that I know, the techniques, the models, all of those kinds of things, and I'll draw from them, after I have a conversation with the leader about what they're looking to achieve. But I'm only going from my own knowledge, which is pretty limited. So what I've started doing recently is saying, design me a half-day workshop focusing on, could be trust building, goal setting, strategy implementation, those kinds of things. And it'll give me back a set of results. And the more specific I get with ChatGPT, the more I say, give me some trust building based on this model of relationship building or that kind of thing. And it'll go and search and bring me those kinds of things. And I don't use it. I don't say like, okay, now that's the agenda and I'm going to just implement that thing. I use it to fill in the gaps of my knowledge, the things that I don't already know, that it might prompt me to do some research on or just to use straight out. So I just want to make sure, like, first of all, is this fitting in with, when you say develop a clear AI strategy, is this the kind of thing that you mean? And would you add anything?
Yeah, so Robin, that was a good point. I think your methodology to augment your skill set, that's spot on as an individual. So I would go that route. As far as learning more yourself as an individual, as far as what is AI and generative AI and then prompt engineering, which I haven't talked about yet, I would use, the Udemy courses, which are great. I know Cornell, to their partner, they have great courses as well that are free. MIT has courses that are free. So once you get into just the 101s, and then after you get into the 101s and you get into the 201s, as far as, okay, I'm a data scientist, or versus I'm a sales rep. There's a company, another opportunity. There's a company called Collective Eye. And basically they use AI for sales reports. No sales reps lost their job, but they just look at it for just analyzing data. So I'm saying that to say you can just look for those courses. And I'm mentioning the free courses because they're excellent ones for pay. But I would go with those, start with the one-on-ones, and based on what you need in your jobs, I would dive into whether it's healthcare, insurance, sales, and so on. So as far as strategy is concerned, it's all about what problem are you solving? It's all about problem, root cause, and then what is the outcome? That's what I mean about AI strategy. The nice thing about here with AI and also CenterWell, we're putting those structures together to make sure that we're following the same templates and getting away from silos in those strategies. And then I touched on the third bullet point as far as investing in education. Those Udemy's and MITs and Cornells, those are very helpful. Now, as far as fostering a culture of innovation, what does that exactly mean? Just like any traditional brainstorming, there's no bad idea. So just while we don't have a lot of innovation labs, we have an opportunity to start small, see how our tool works, and see how it pushes us forward. But be open to ideas in regards to how can we move forward. Just because we didn't think of it doesn't make it bad. So that's what I mean about developing a culture of innovation, and that starts with leadership. That definitely starts with leadership. And I always recommend starting small. The example I use for that is Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus. When they had a new show, they always developed it in small towns, and they would perfect the show until they hit a point where when it was time to go to New York or Chicago or LA. At that point, it was perfected. So the same thing with us. When we have an idea, start with a very small pilot group, 5 or 6, just basically the size of a scrum team, and then you can move on forward from there. Another thing that I recognize and really respect, as leaders, we have to have a universal thought process. We have to think globally, and we're not in the in the weeds, so to speak. We don't have time to be. So it's important to listen to our foot soldiers because they are the ones who know how things really have to be done. 70% of digital transformations fail because of a lack of leadership. And a lot of times we're not listening to, oh, that's not going to work because. So it's important to listen to our foot soldiers. And then after that, just always have that continuous curiosity in regards to what's happening next. Because here's the thing, there's going to be a better Chat GPT. There's going to be a better Bard. There's going to be a better Gemini, just like we started in the 80s with SuperCalc and VisiCalc, which is spreadsheets. And then we went to Lotus 1-2-3 and now Excel. And so it's always going to be something different. So just get used to the journey. Uh-oh. Did I lose? Oh boy.
I have a
Recording in
friend who
progress.
was just told by his boss, he writes press releases for a living. And he was told by his boss, I need you to start using some AI to write some of those press releases. And he's feeling very threatened and upset about that. And like,
Yeah.
rightly so, I get it. Like if Corey told me, start using AI to write project plans, Roxanne, I'd be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" But this discussion is helping me have a different conversation with my friend, because I was like, oh my God, that sucks. What the heck's wrong with your boss? But I think if he learns to use it and learns to write, with it, maybe first draft comes from AI and then he uses his human expertise and knowledge of the organization, like like Wade was saying, I just think we
Yeah.
probably need to learn more and explore more. I know for me
Yeah.
personally.
You bet. And speaking of Wade, it looks like we have him back. So welcome back, sir.
It's funny, I was just talking and I didn't hear anything. So I said, wait a minute, but I'm sorry, I don't know what you missed, but we could, continue the conversation.
So we're looking at investing in education and training. So why don't you quickly go through the rest of those points, and then we'll open the Q&A or the breakout rooms.
Absolutely. I apologize, technology, right? So as far as investigating and investing in information and technology and learning, Udemy, MIT, Cornell all have free information that helps us with AI. Start with 101 as far as what the basics are. And based on what your skill sets are and what your jobs are, whether it's sales, insurance, healthcare on a lower level, start taking those classes to help you with that. Fostering innovation. It all starts with leadership. While we don't have innovation labs, start with sizes of just 8, 10 people. And then there's no wrong answers. And if individuals have a different view or slant on creating innovation, let's go for it. Let's see what happens and then move forward from there.
Love that.
Yeah, and then listening to the foot soldiers. As leaders, we don't have the time to know all the lower nuances of what's happening in the weeds. Our responsibility is to have an overall global view of things. So it's important to listen to individuals that are doing their jobs. Now, we know that 70% of digital transformation projects fail because of leadership, expectations, communications. We can avoid that by listening and having a good feedback loop as far as what's going forward. AI is no different. And then again, staying curious as to what's happening, continuing to learn because things are going to change. It's going to be another Chat GPT, another Bard. It's going to be another Genesis. Remember, we started from in the 80s, we started with VisiCalc and SuperCalc as a spreadsheet, then Lotus 1-2-3, now Excel. Everything moves forward. This is no different. We'll always have another Fast and Furious movie. We'll have another Mission Impossible movie. It'll continue.
Yeah, we were talking before in a previous meeting, we couldn't imagine what's happening right now 20 years ago. Think about right now, what's going to happen 20 years from now and how that's going to change. One of the things that I hear, Wade, in what you're talking, one of the threads I want to pull out is having a mindset around this, being open, being curious, practicing that humana value of curiosity. not getting freaked out by this whole thing and just kind of going with it and allowing yourself, like giving yourself lots of grace as you explore this new technology, try things out, take that test and learn approach. Would you say that's accurate?
Absolutely, because when we think about AI overall, we think about, well, how does it work? Think about this for just a second. For even ChatGPT to be functional, it was down yesterday for anybody who tried to use it. For it to be functional, it takes what, $700,000 a day to run the engines and the cloud computing. It's amazing. And then
Yeah.
from there is 175 billion parameters within it to get answers to predict what you need. So with that being said, exploratory or explainable AI is needed, but start small. You won't understand everything, but what you will understand is your results. Siri, Alexa, anti-lock brakes, Google Translate are all generative AI. We use it. We don't know how it works, but we use it and we appreciate it. I'm not saying turn a blind eye, but understand, just continue to move forward.
So it just occurred to me that what leaders might really do, like you all on this call might go, like, if you're struggling to figure out how to use it, say, hey, I'm a leader at Humana. My responsibilities, my team responsibilities are X, Y, and Z. How can I best use AI? Ask AI how to use AI, right?
Very good point. Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Great.
Yeah.
Love it. All right. Fabulous. We're a little bit behind time, but that is okay. We're going to go into breakout rooms. So those of you who want to, we're going to ask you, and you'll get a pop-up that'll ask you, do you want to go to a breakout room? If you want to, click yes or go or whatever that little blue button is. If you want to stay, it'll say join. Thanks, Rox. If you want to stay in this main room and just do the Q&A with Wade, just ignore that box, click away from it or cancel or the little X or whatever that is. So, and we will take your questions. So we'll start that right now.
I have a quick question. Does vendor can use Strider for Humana, or it's only for onshore associates?
Yeah, so Wade, are you familiar with Strider? I don't think you and I talked about Strider. So
no.
While you got kicked off, I was mentioning that I have tried to go on my work computer and use ChatGPT and Genesis, and we always get the restricted notice. But and I asked for permission to use it, and what they said was, no, you can't use it, but you can use Strider, which is, it's not Humana's AI, but it is I think a vended AI that is okay with data and that kind of thing.
Right.
So there's some context.
Yeah. So what's going to happen now, and I, don't want to speak above my pay grade, is obviously generative AI is going to be, accessed more within our enterprise. One good example of that here is what Salesforce Marketing Cloud does. We use that within the marketing space. They have a tool that's called Einstein. Einstein provides a number of templates you can use for audience selections and campaigns for sending out information. But one great thing that Einstein has is you could use just Humana information only, or you can get into ubiquitous information that's out on the internet, or a combination of both. What it does a beautiful job at segregating and keeping private our information, which we're very, adroit at keeping to ourselves, but it also gives us a chance to play on the outside as well. And Einstein is approved, which tells me where the trend is going. I wanted to mention something really quickly before we run out of time, and that is prompt engineering as far as learning. So prompt engineering is a way to ask AI for information. And it's awesome, it's great. I highly recommend getting into it. Prompt engineering is very popular now, it's having its heyday, but the way the trends are going, because AI can write code, I personally predict that generative AI will have its moment and it will move on to just, we're asking it questions because it starts to understand AI starts to understand our language so much, we don't need a prompt. We can just have the conversation. I wanted to mention that. So yes, dive into prompt engineering, but understand it's a boat from getting from an island to land, but once you get to land, it's going to peter out a little bit, my estimation, in years to come.
Gotcha. All right, thanks for that. So I want to pull some questions from the chat because there are a few of those. And Whitney is asking, she says, I recently finished my MBA, so I went to update my resume. I found from others that they have been using AI to write their resumes. I dipped my toes into Gen AI, but I'm wondering how to maintain my own voice while still stand out among other candidates. I want my profile to be authentic to me. I see it like using my filter, like using a filter on my video. I don't want people to be disappointed when I meet them because I don't talk like a bot. So I think her question is around how she maintains her own voice within that, like whatever she gets back from AI.
Great question. And here's the thing, just because AI gives you an output of a CV that's, good, you don't have to use it all. You can just go back in and revise based on your language and your personality. We know you can write a dissertation or some type of document and make it sound like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. Just you go in, and that's where the human intervention comes into play. Just make it sound like you with your wordings. And if you don't use the word, fantastic, then don't put fantastic on your resume. So I'm just saying, going back in and just put your words in, that's where our intervention comes into play.
Love it. Thank you, Wade. Marcel asks, what's your opinion of the outputs of the newest ChatGPT 4.0 versus Claude 3?
God, good question, Marcel. So I've been, since they announced it, that's 4.0, I've been trying to singularize my assistant because it, remembers what I'm doing. And it's fun. It's great, not perfect, but it's good. As far as Claude is concerned, the advantage that I'm finding, and I think this is going to happen with Google, is it's doing a better job around the context of what I'm saying versus just what I'm saying. So this is where we have to exercise the right to, you're going to actually be using many generative AI tools. Don't be monogamous when it comes to that. We're going to have to use many. So what I like better.
Polyamorous.
Polyamorous is the word. So with that being said, yeah, exactly. So with this, it's a matter of I like 4.0 because of the conversational piece to it, but Bard because it understands context a little more for me.
Love it. And by the way, Nelson graciously dropped in the link to an article in response to that question too. So you'll want to check that out if you're interested in those differences. That's great. What other questions, you all? Feel free to hit the unmute button and ask Wade directly, or I'll keep watching the chat as well.
I have one.
Yes, indeed.
It's interesting to me because I'm interested in this, and so I've been doing some research myself. And I've seen several articles about how you have to be really careful because people's bias, the programmer's bias comes in, and that can be from a political standpoint, a religious standpoint, just lifestyle standpoint. And you can ask these different AI, like ChatGPT, Claude, etc., and get very different answers based on the programmer's own biases. So how does a person navigate all that? Because it's not like they publish, that the programmers of this ChatGPT have these biases, right? Like you just don't have any way to gauge that.
That's a great, yeah, Cindy, that's a great question. And that is the challenge. That is a real life challenge that we have to navigate as humans using this technology. You look at what is the motive behind a developer creating a model, and based on the data that they use. And just like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to Reddit and Wikipedia, and that's just two examples, you have to understand where it came from. So the answer there is, it's the trust and verify. We get the information, and if it feels right to us, and that's the advantage of us as humans using it. AI doesn't have the ability to read intent or understanding the political environment that we're living in. Take that information, and if the bulk of it answers your question and satisfy the need, trim the fat, and we move forward from there. But we do have to have that interaction.
Great question. Thank you, Cindy.
That's a good question.
What else? So this brings up a question, and And Wade, thanks for that, Nelson. Wade, you and I haven't talked about this at all, so I'm going to totally put you on the spot with this.
That's fine.
But Nelson, what you're talking about makes me think about like our competitive edge. Because one thing we haven't talked about on this call is if we didn't embrace AI as an organization, if leaders don't really understand how to use it, how is that going to leave us in the dust and perhaps, fail against our competitors?
I always say that there will be two types of companies in the future, those who are using AI and those who are out of business. It's almost like trying to run a business without the internet. Going back to the yellow envelopes for mail, it just will set us back so far. So understanding it's talking about use cases. I know in the marketing space at Humana, there were 63 use cases in trying to save dollars and increase productivity as well. But the political advantage or the competitive advantage is it's a necessity. It really is. And I know there's a big fear of job elimination, but we can look at it this way. When the car came about, it did eliminate the horse and buggy, but it created other jobs as far as manufacturing and repair, and here we are. So it's just a matter of moving forward. So without it, we would be out of business.